We want to first thank you so much, Director Gwi-yeop, for your time today. Welcome to our show, Insight. Now, first of all, let me ask you, what brings you to Korea?
I'm on an official mission. I came for mainly two reasons. One is to learn about Korea's ODA policy. As Korea is increasing its aid, I wanted to understand better about its architecture as well as its policy. And the second reason is for me to be able to help the public better understand through this kind of opportunity about humanitarian work and what OCHA does.
Mm-hmm. I understand you came to attend a discussion that was actually hosted by the Foreign Ministry for people living and working in international organizations, that is Koreans, of course. What kinds of topics were discussed?
There were a lot of young people who were interested in exploring opportunities to work abroad, especially working in international organizations like the United Nations. And they were willing to learn how and what they need to prepare to be able to seize these kind of opportunities. Outside, we also had the discussions with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about what I just mentioned, which is the aid architecture and its policy.
Right. Now, you've been working for the UN OCHA, that's the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. What type of organization would you describe it as? What are your responsibilities?
Office for Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs. OCHA is one of the Secretariat offices which reports directly to the Secretary General. It coordinates humanitarian assistance by bringing different partners together to be able to most effectively deliver aid assistance to those people who are in need. So for instance, as an example, if the tsunami happened, right after that, the first team is our team to be able to coordinate assistance to ensure that we focus on saving as many lives as possible and to ensure that the resources are not wasted in such a way that the humanitarian partners work together to deliver its assistance to those people who are in most need.
Your history with the UN, it goes back into 1994 when you joined the development program. Now, you actually worked in Somalia. How are things, would you say, in Somalia today?
I worked in Somalia in 1994 for about 2 years. At the time, it was actually very difficult. There was a conflict, a lot of places you could not access. And I believe 15, 16 years later, the situation hasn't improved very much. As of now, there are 2.5 million people that are in need of humanitarian assistance, of which I believe about 1.4 million people are internally displaced. And more than 300,000 children under the age of 5 are malnourished, which means that there's a lot of people suffering from hunger and just famine, and a lot of children in particular and women. We are working very hard, the United Nations system, to be able to provide assistance to those people in need.
I have another statistic here, 100,000 children dying of hunger every day. If you do the math, that's one child every 5 seconds. Because of this hunger situation, you've seen some of the worst situations. You were actually right there in the midst of it all. Was there a particular incident while working out in the field that left a deep impression?
I think it's tragic to see children suffering from hunger and just simply dying because of lack of medicine, simple medicine, which just costs maybe only 5 cents here in Korea or elsewhere. I think it's lack of the assistance that children have to suffer. And I also think it's tragic that when Korea places so much emphasis on education, these children do not have opportunities to learn. Especially in countries like Somalia or even some parts of Ethiopia and other parts. And they are instead of learning to read and write, they are learning how to use the gun, and they are being used as child soldiers to fight at the frontiers. And of course, this kind of situation is tragic.
Well, we do know that there are a various number of issues aside from hunger, aside from the ones you mentioned. We have 1.35 million displaced people. That is the estimate. And so how would you say, not just Korea in specific, but the international community, how are they reaching out to Somalia?
Well, we have been providing a lot of food assistance. So as of now, as of April, I know that 1 million people have been provided with assistance, food assistance, and about 200,000 children have been helped with nutrition assistance. So we are trying to save lives of people, and that's the main focus. And we have to actually overcome this humanitarian phase in such a way that we address longer-term issues such as just regular development issues. And partly this famine is caused by drought, and which I think could have been done something about had we actually prepared a lot more. Mm-hmm. So we are focusing now a lot more on preparedness and resilience of the people.
Let's bring it back to an issue close to those of people living in Korea. Let's talk about some of the human rights issues for North Korean defectors, especially in China. This has been a big issue, of course, but what would you say, how is the UN trying to deal with this?
One of the fundamental areas of work of the United Nations system is the protection of people and protection of the fundamental human rights. And the refugees have the basic rights to enjoy. And of course, there are specialized agencies such as UNHCR that focuses on ensuring that the rights of the refugees are protected. I know that there are about 3 million people in North Korea that are in need of humanitarian assistance. And recently, the UN country team in North Korea have requested $200 million to provide assistance to those people that are in need. And I think it would be really, really great if the Korean government can resume assistance to North Korea. I think if we can provide greater assistance to those people in Korea, of course they have less reasons to defect, and therefore they don't have to become refugees. Of course, those numbers will continue to increase as the situation deteriorates, but at least as a way of stabilizing the number of refugees, the resumption of the Korean aid to North Korea is critical.
South Korea, that is, in general, has been really stepping up trying to provide foreign aid. What would you say is the reasoning behind this?
Korea is a very unique country. It used to be an aid recipient country.
That's right.
And now it is an OECD DOC member. And as a member of the OECD DOC, it is actually aid provider. So having gone through the transformation process from being an aid recipient to aid provider, I think Korea can actually empathize with those countries that are receiving at the receiving end, but at the same time understand that what it means to give with generosity and empathy. And I think as Korea becomes a fastly growing country, both economically and as a leader in the global stage, it's very important that it plays that effective role in setting the aid policy in such a way that it actually really directly impacts on the lives of the people.
In Korea, we do have a number of organizations, right, that provide foreign aid. I would say one of the most representative ones being World Vision. So what kind of work, in a nutshell, do these organizations do?
NGOs are very uniquely placed, especially in areas where most UN agencies or other governments cannot access. So the remote areas in Somalia, or the remote areas even in Syria and Libya, which are making the headline news nowadays, the NGOs are able to access them, and because of the roles that they play. And they are the ones who actually can engage directly with the communities and are able to understand their needs and therefore provide those assistance directly to those beneficiaries. Mm-hmm. So they play a critical role.
Well, I'm curious to know then, what was your moment where you're like, this is the work I want to do, maybe a first volunteer project or something?
I had an opportunity to go and work in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. Port-au-Prince is a very kind of poor area, and even within Port-au-Prince, which is the capital of Haiti, I worked in this place called the Cité Soleil. It's the City of the Sun. And the reason why it's called the City of the Sun is because it's so poor that what they hope for is just the sun, to watch the sun. But in any case, I lived there for a while. I worked in a place called Death and Dying Institute. which is a place that was established by Mother Teresa. She established 2 places in the world, one in Calcutta and one in Port-au-Prince. And the reason why she built 2 institutions was that even the poor people who are dying, especially those patients who are dying of HIV and AIDS at the time, need to die with dignity, with pride. And she did not want the people with HIV and AIDS just to die on the street. So she actually mobilized them and to die peacefully in this Dying and Death Institute. So I worked there for 3 months, and it was very kind of a traumatic experience. I was relatively young, so watching people so closely who die on a daily basis, and how they die, and what it means for people who do not have much to die with such dignity, and how important that is, and that they have fundamental right to die peacefully, is something that I learned at a very young age. And I think that's something that actually triggered my interest in development, and that it's not something that you do just in one volunteer job, and it's a lifetime commitment. And that's what I think interested me to work. I also had another opportunity to live for a while in Kenya, and it was a very interesting experience. Again, I lived with the family for about 6 months, and during the time I also had an opportunity, and it was not something I planned, but I lived with a sex worker for about 2 weeks. And she did so in such a way that she wanted to feed her 2 children. It's not something that she wanted to do, but it was a survival for her. And what it meant for her to work in that area, and why she was doing it, and the whole life story behind it, was something that I actually realized that a lot of times people do not have choices. And those choices are sometimes made for them. And what it meant for them to actually do and live such a life is something that I learned in a very close up. Mm-hmm. And hence the reason why I have decided to work in humanitarian and development area.
I think speaking with you provides perspective, because a lot of us are, of course, down, worrying about little things. Even the recession, which is probably headline news, compared to fighting literally for life, is a different matter, right? Well, for our Korean viewers and our international viewers, maybe one last thing you'd like to say with all your experience and background in this field.
I would say that we should be grateful for what we have, and it's such a privileged life that a lot of Koreans enjoy in Korea. It's a safe and secure environment. There are a lot of people who are constantly afraid of disasters and earthquakes and tsunamis and what have you. And I think that we are so privileged. And because of this position of being in a privileged life, I think it's important to share. And sharing means not only in financial terms, but sharing in terms of knowledge and experience and technical know-how. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage Koreans to be out there to share.
All right. Well, you definitely shared with us your know-how. Thank you very much for your time and for your insight, Director Sun, today.
Thank you.